here with my last classmate, Maya, and her topic is sodomy. Thank you, Maya, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So, my first question is very broad. What is sodomy?
Um, and I have no specific answer for that. Sodomy has a very broad definition. It's generally seen as either anal sex or homosexual sex, which also correlate a lot. Where the word originated, it comes from a biblical story in which there was a biblical city of Sodom, and the people within the city were very they performed, sexual assault, and they were very willing to rape strangers. They also had a lot of prideful hostility and an intolerance towards people that were not like them and that were seen as different.
Mhm.
Um, and so the word sodomy, the roots kind of come from that, and just as being welcoming and seeing things that are not normal, I guess, normal in quotations. But it's very much evolved to just be focused on homosexuality and anal sex.
I see. Okay, yeah, because when you first told me about your topic as sodomy, I automatically thought of anal sex because that's what I
Yeah,
understand it in like today's context.
yeah.
But yeah, so based on your research, would you say that the word sodomy helped create homosexuality as an identity category?
Um, yes and no. It definitely put a term to the legal side of things, because homosexuality has been um, criminalized under the term sodomy, and especially after the Middle Ages and towards the 18th century, it was very much criminalized under sodomy. Like homosexuality was criminalized under sodomy. Um, so, sodomy as a term used to define homosexuality began a lot during the 18th century. It became a term that would just kind of not be spoken of as just kind of as something that you just kind of, you knew what it was, you knew it was wrong and it should not be done, but nobody really spoke about it.
Mm.
It was just kind of one of those underlying things. It really started to rise during the 18th century, and it gave birth to the Molly House, which is a term for meeting places which homosexual men would meet at. The term Molly was used as a term for homosexual men during the 18th century. There were a lot of arrests that were made during these. There would be people that would go in disguised as a homosexual man with the intention of outing homosexual people so that they could be arrested and criminalized. A lot of these arrests being did not carry through. They were not convicted. There was a formation of a society called the Societies for the Reformation of Manners that was formed in 1691. Their targets were the male homoerotic relationships and the molly houses. And they were the people that would go in and try to convict people. Um, there are trial transcripts that have been studied and um, looked at a lot through historians, but a lot of these are very biased, and they have to be read very critically, as very they would be presented in a very critical manner towards homosexuality, and we don't know what's been left out and what's been kind of reworded. And so yeah, a lot of the cases are actually very interesting because of that.
Wow, so that's definitely different, a lot different than how we understand homosexuality as an identity today. It's
Yes, yeah.
completely just, it's different, but it's almost like when people say gay people have been around forever, they definitely don't mean this.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's very different, but it's also unfortunately very similar because there's still it's changed a lot in a lot of European countries, and in North America the mindset's kind of changing. But when you look at a lot of other countries, that you can still be put to death for being gay
Hmm,
and
that's true.
participating in homosexual sex, it's actually very similar as well. It's really sad.
Yeah, that is sad.
Yeah.
Um, how does the word sodomy reinforce heteronormativity today?
Um, it kind of goes off of this history of sodomy. Today, there's a lot of, as I just said, there's still a lot of negativity targeting homosexual people and specifically gay men. Um, and there are sodomy laws that would criminalize sodomy, specifically either anal sex or homosexuality or a combination of both. It really the definition does vary a lot, and there is no one definition. Um, but these things called sodomy laws were still being um, they were still being altered and taken down and removed, even in North America up until the late 1800s. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, persecutions in the United States before the late 1800s, they would mostly focus on sexual relations between men and women in sex that is not for reproduction. They would also look at adult and child rape, and also adult or person and animal intercourse.
Hmm.
But then after that, it would specifically target people that did not fit the norm. That did also include people of color and people born outside of the United States, and very much evolved to just be homosexual men. Um, and that was just the laws in the United States. And so that still impacts our view of homosexuality today.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
20th century, that various states within the United States would begin to question their sodomy laws, but a lot of it was not done as a step towards legalizing homosexuality. It was more done just to appease the public and just kind of win votes for certain politicians and just kind of stuff like that. Um, a lot of the laws would not refer to homosexuality um, specifically, and they would instead be referring to quote unquote crimes against nature, that would carry a very heavy implication that the natural state of heterosexual and penis vagina intercourse was the only natural way to have sex.
Hmm.
Uh, because it was also targeting men, and sex between two women was not criminalized until the early 20th century, which I think is also a very interesting correlation.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and yeah, it's just kind of it was an evolution, and now homosexuality in the act is not necessarily illegal anymore in at least North America, but it is still very much what's the word? Kind of a debatable topic. There's a lot
Hmm.
of conflict within it. There's a lot of people that still very much disagree with it. But the removal of the laws against sodomy was the first legal act in the legalization of homosexuality, which is
Yes,
good.
definitely. Well, thank you for answering my questions, Maya.
Yes.